Let's talk about dishes though. It is really not fun to be washing a giant sink full of dishes, but we can stay on top of it. So that's why in our classes we wash dishes as we go. Okay, so you start with dirty dishes. So the very first thing is you want to look if there's any crumbs or any leftover food on there. And we're just going to wash that off. And I do this trying to be kind of efficient to also not waste a bunch of water. I started on my hot setting. On my sink, it takes a while for the hot water to kind of get going. It's an old house, there's pipes, the water heater is over this way. And so I want to make sure that by the time I'm actually washing the dishes, the water can be warm. It needs to be just warm enough for grease to come off, but also not so hot that it's unpleasant to your hands, okay? Some people like to wear gloves. I don't like to wear gloves, but if you're in your family use gloves, then by all means use your gloves. So set it on hot and then just kind of feel it. If your sink works faster, then just get it to a temperature that is pleasant to you, and that is different for every sink, how to make these adjustments, okay? And then I take any dishes that might have any leftover food on them and just kind of pre-rinse real quick. Again, try not to waste too much of the water. See, there's some glasses with some water already in there. And here is a little bit of some chocolate milk or something. I'm gonna rinse this out. I look around my room and make sure there's no more dishes anywhere else to wash, okay? And then I always have dry towels next to me. And we want to have a sponge, ideally something to scrub with. If you have a brush is really awesome. And we need some dish soap. Okay, we don't have to use a lot of dish soap, but here's a little trick that I do. I take, let's say this cup, okay? I'm going to add some soap in there, like just a squirt, and then I let my warm water, you still have no warm water, and here it comes, and I'm going to just add some warm water into this cup. Now there's a bunch of suds in there. There's my soap, and then I take my sponge and I dip my sponge in the soapy water, and then I just start washing all my dishes, scrubbing the inside, scrubbing the outside. And honestly, everybody kind of does it a different way, but I just kind of wash all my dishes. I take the silverware and I stick it with the sharp sides down into one of the glasses that I already washed. And so this has some of chocolate milk in there, and it was sitting overnight, so it is a little bit crusty. So I'm going to use the scrubby side of my sponge and just keep scrubbing until I don't feel any more residue. I do the outside. If your mom wears lipstick, make sure you get the lipstick off. I do my plates. I scrub the front, the plate part, and then always check the back as well. I have a spatula here. I'm gonna make sure that I get the spatula, the handle. Here are some more spoons, okay? And here's one more glass. Same thing. Do you see how I dip my sponge into the cup with the soapy water? This is how I just don't waste a bunch of water. See, my water isn't running. Now here's a knife, and you have to always be very careful. That's why I'm not a big fan of having a full sink of soapy water, because what if somebody left a knife in there? So be careful. The blade is right here, so hold on to your knife and then just use your sponge and wash this. And this is actually something I'm going to rinse right away so that it can be out of the way and drying and I don't accidentally hurt myself. So now I rinse this off and I'm going to place it on my drying rack. Okay. There are different types of pans and different types of pots. I have a cast iron skillet right here. I rinsed it out with water, and a cast iron skillet we do not want to use soap on. So I'm just gonna let this sit right over here and let it soak a little bit longer while I rinse these dishes off. So they've been soaped and lathered, they've been scrubbed, and now I'm just gonna rinse my glasses out with just clean water. Make sure there's no suds, double check there's no lipstick or any other residue on there. Warm water will keep your glasses from having streaks, and it will dry off faster as well. Do the same thing to your knives and forks and spoons. Now I'm actually getting rid of the soapy water. This cup is clean. I'm going to rinse the plates. And now these are setting to dry, right? Now let's talk about this cast iron skillet. If you use soap in this, it will destroy the seasoning, is what it's called. There's like a light layer of oil. So this is where I use my scrubby, and I just turn on a little bit of water, fill it, just a little bit, and then we're just going to scrub this pan and keep scrubbing it. And I will do a separate video on how to clean cast iron. But basically the tip is if there's any crusty parts in there, you can use salt to get everything out, okay? Just keep scrubbing it to get any kind of residue out. And then I will hand dry this with a towel in just a minute. Okay. Now your dishes are drying, and when they're dry in about half an hour, you can put them away and you are done. Your sink, if you want to, and with your sink, before you're done, you take your sponge and you can just use a little bit of dishwashing soap and then just put a little bit on your sponge and then just run your sponge over the bottom of your sink and the sides. And then as you're rinsing out your sponge, just rinse your sink out real quick, your scrubby out real quick, and set them also to dry so that your sponge doesn't start smelling funky. And that's it, my friends. Dry your hands and your dishes are done.